want to know what you thought of that last match there. That was a bit of a back and forth.
Yeah, it was a cool one. The Druid in the end, well, the Druid mirror, it was kind of based on the draws. I feel like that was a bit of just what the cards were, but a really cool showing from the Face Hunter. It's nice to see it come back for a little bit. Not everyone is playing it. It does have its weak matchups for those who don't like the deck that much, but I think it's awesome to have it as part of the aggressive strategies.
Well, as one of the most analytical casters, as someone who plays competitively himself, what have you really been impressed with the players this weekend?
I think Theis's and Ostkaka's lineups are pretty amazing. Those anti-aggro lineups. In Theis's first match today, I was just so impressed. Looking at the lineups and the lineup of his opponent, I felt like there's no way Theis loses unless something ridiculous happens. So I think those two players have maybe done their preparation the best and have the most the best chances to go far, just based on the deck selections.
Absolutely, they've done well in this tournament. We'll see how it all pans out in the games later on today and next weekend at BlizzCon. Don't go anywhere, more games next.
Hotform versus Ostkaka!
NA versus EU returns here at the Hearthstone World Championships. It's time for Hotform versus Ostkaka. Only one player will be going to BlizzCon for now, as we are going into Group C winners match. My name is Frodan. I'm joined by the Kriparian and the Robert A. Wing. How are you guys doing? Krip, you know, what's it like being able to watch your fellow Toronto Canadian brethren fight here for a top 8 spot?
Well, he's doing well, so the feeling is positive. I think this is a quite highly anticipated match. Both players are known to be, you know, fairly creative, but also very, very determined to do well. Also, both the rogue players in the tournament.
That's
and
right.
As we talked about, the rogue players are the only rogue players are matched up against each other, and the only shaman players are matched up against each other right after this.
It feels amusing to me, Robert, because it's like 2 rogue players matched up against each other, and only one will go through. And in the next match, the 2 shaman players will be matching up, and only one can go through. What's up with that? Are you rigging the brackets, Blizzard?
Well, both could eventually go through.
Gotcha. That's true. Both can go
Thanks
through.
for the save, Crib. No, I'm not. I actually think it's super cool, though, that we're seeing in the winners round so far, we've seen Priest, Rogue, and Shaman. And as I said earlier, I don't think people really expected that coming in. So
Not at all. And I'm not sure what will happen. I'm not sure who will win. And if you guys have your predictions, hashtag AM win or hashtag EU win. I'm not exactly sure who I'm picking to win. I'm just going to go ahead and say that I think Hotform has a lot to prove. I think Ostkaka has kind of gotten some of the reputation and recognition from his peers, but Hotform is still on the fence. A lot of players are like, yeah, he's okay. But I think every time you underestimate him, he's definitely surpassed.
Well, I'm gonna leave my caster bias out there for everyone to see. I'm kind of rooting for Hotform a little bit, but at the same time, we also have the clash of styles. Hotform is just bringing his favorite decks, the things he's practiced with the most, the things that have done well for him in the past, while Ostkaka is basically bringing new decks that work together to counter a specific archetype. He's also, just like Theis, one of the players running Patron Warrior again, specifically to target these aggressive decks.
Yes.
And so far, from what we've seen in the tournament, the stylistic play of countering a specific archetype has been more successful than just bringing 3 good decks. So I think if you consider the results in the tournament so far, on that note, I think Ostkaka is indeed favored.
What do you think about? What about you, Robert? As we get ready for Druid versus Mage here.
I think, Crip, you touched on a very important point that I like so far in this matchup is the contrast of styles. Ostkaka comes from a group of players who are very much like, what are the most powerful decks as I perceive them to be? Those are the ones I'm bringing. Whereas Hotform, he very much prides himself on being an innovator. He's not a huge fan of just kind of what he calls, you know, mindless aggro decks. Like, he likes to build his own things and bring them with him, and it's very respectable. And, you know, to see him get this far, obviously you have to say, hey, it's working for him. And I'm most excited by the fact that regardless of the outcome of this, you know, North America versus Europe showdown, a Rogue is going to the top 8 of BlizzCon.
Yeah, it's guaranteed, and a Shaman, as we talked about, coming up.
Yeah.
That's the one way to get the Shamans through. Otherwise, there's no chance, right?
Right. There's the other way to look at it is they'll force him to go through, just like you said. So there we go. Mage versus Druid, we've seen this a couple times already, and we've seen it go the Druid's way more times than not. In fact, I don't think Freeze Mage has been able to steal one from Druids so far this tournament, although they came really close.
I think maybe there was a win in there.
Was there one?
I'm not sure.
I don't think we've seen one just yet. That said, Ostkaka is such an incredibly intelligent player. And if there's someone who can make this matchup work, I have no doubt. I believe Taj got pretty close as well, so definitely doable. And Ostkaka, a competitor equal to the task, no doubt.
Well, Hotform has an insane hand now.
Yes.
It might not look like one, but with the way that the mana crystals are going to come down, the Wild Growth on 2 puts them on 4 mana next turn, which leaves them with the Shredder. The turn after that he's going to have 5, and +2 from the Innervate is going to allow him to Dr. Boom on, what is that, turn 3?
Turn 4.
Turn 4.
Because turn 2,
right,
you
right.
turn 3.
The Wild Growth acts as a coin, so yes, turn 4, Dr. Boom.
Very powerful, and the thing about the Dr. Boom is that it's not easy to remove. Ostkaka would have to Frostbolt it twice in order to kill it. Normally, even if you Fireball, you spend your entire turn killing it, and then he not only has other minions like Boombots, but he develops other things, and he also has Savage Roar. So if the Boombots stick around, that is some quick damage very, very fast.
It's one of the weaknesses of Freeze Mage is obviously not including even one Polymorph. Polymorph, obviously a basic mage spell that does a great job of dealing with big minions. Dr. Booms, Ragnaros is the kind of stuff you sometimes see pop up.
Oh, wow. I'm actually really surprised to see that, because if he killed the Blood Mage,
then Fireball
would not go 1-for-1 with Dr. Boom.
Well, then Loot Hoarder would kill it still, I think.
Yeah, but then he'd lose the Loot Hoarder. In this case, he doesn't lose the Thalnos. The Thalnos would kill the Boombot.
Yeah, I might have just prioritized the just straight-up attack damage over the potential for Fireball. So obviously, Hotform had a reason for what he did.
I think it's because the Wormrest agent, you know, he wants to trade into that health, and then then he can use that as a Savage Roar cleanup as well. So like he can kill off the Loot Hoarder first, and then it has less chance to challenge whatever comes out in the following turns. Ostkaka here, by the way, doesn't have that answer, even though we talked about it. He would have to Frostbolt, and that's only doing 4 damage. And then he still can't kill it off, so he's going to be looking for answers in the following turns.
By the way, if you're looking at Hotform's hand here, next turn he goes into Emperor Thor's hand, which is going to discount the Druid of the Claw and the Savage Roar. Ostkaka may be actually on a way shorter clock than he knows.
Well, Ostkaka actually has non-stop freezes. With the Frostbolt and Dr. Doom, it limits the amount of damage by a lot, and he can lead in with a Frost Nova, then a Blizzard, then a Flame Strike. So actually, even though Hotform has a lot of power, it won't be doing much for quite some time.
Right, now that's actually a very fair point. And Druid of the Claw can be charged, which allows it to negate freezing effects as it just comes out on the turn and obviously does the damage. But being at 30 health, Ostkaka is, as you pointed out, actually fairly safe at the moment, assuming Blizzard comes out on turn 6.
I really like just killing the Blood Mage with the 1-2. The Boombots allow you to kind of require the Mage to either have a clear, which it does have, but you don't always have that. And if you don't have that, you kind of push for a little bit more tempo. And tempo is really important against the Freeze Mage because it kind of stalls what the Freeze Mage tries to do from turning a defensive beam into an offensive one. It usually pushes that just enough so you can have a better chance of winning.
Right. I really like this line from Hotform. Only has 3 cards in hand, but playing Druid of the Claw didn't necessarily do a whole lot for him. As you said, he's going into those turns, whereas Ostkaka can just lock down the board with something like Blizzard. So Emperor Thor's hand does give him guaranteed value, and Ostkaka's not going to be able to clear it this turn. So
yeah, the only issue with Ostkaka's hand really is the card draw. He just doesn't have any. He's got board clears, but if he keeps drawing cards that don't do a lot by themselves from this point, he actually has a hand that just has to draw 1 card at a time, which is a really bad state.
Right. Sure. Hotform looking like he uses the Keep of the Grove. Silencing the Mad Scientist would deny him both Ice Barrier or Ice Block, and that just makes it really tricky.
That makes it even harder to actually draw, because that is basically a draw.
Yes. A draw and play. Very big tempo.
If Ostkaka actually draws a Secret here, it's literally the worst card he could possibly draw.
Right, and obviously with the cycle, he's aware that he has the Emperor Thor's hand down, so any other cards he puts into his hand, those are going to get discounted and just continue to have this incredibly cheap and effective hand at dealing damage.
He already still has like enough reduction on stuff from Emperor Thorson that even if he draws Force of Nature, he can use 2 Savage Roars, and that's guaranteed 22 damage as long as he has the board space to do so.
I'm pretty sure unless Blizzard or Ice Block come out, actually, Ostkaka's just dead. I mean, Blizzard's going to come out. It's a very easy read for Ostkaka, but,
but
kind of crazy how quickly that Druid
like if he draws Force of Nature now,
Crip, it happened. Crip has been our own doomsayer when it comes to Dr. Boom, warning us of the 4 damage Boombots to come. And it worked out.
Druid of the Claw has to be played on Taunt here. You have to play around Flame Strike. You have to give credit for it, especially after just playing 4-4.
Savage
free
Roar was gonna
Savage
cost
Roar.
1.
One free Savage Roar, one 1-mana Savage Roar.
Yeah, it's just this game is one force of nature from being very, very ugly for Ostkaka.
Right, and Ostkaka has to weigh, you know, opportunity cost of like, if he chooses to clear, he's going to take 4 damage. You know, when can he even develop secrets? Is he going to even get any thing besides stalling the game? Because he needs to find a way to win against Druid, even though right now he's doing his best to survive.
Well, he played Blizzard last turn, even though Frost Nova basically accomplished exactly the same task, because Blizzard is just another like very clunky card to use. It allows him here to use a Secret and Frost Nova, which I guess is a little more favorable. I think at this stage, when you've given 2 cards heavy discounts, and really the only card in hand is the last one that he drew last turn, which could be literally anything, after a certain point, Emperor Thorson has already done his thing.
Yeah.
Right.
So often we see players going overboard just to get rid of that card immediately. If that doesn't happen, in the rare case it doesn't happen, you just leave it on the board and hope for the best, which is what we're seeing now.
Yeah, and the free Savage Roars are... I mean, basically, even if one Savage Roar was free, it would be still really tricky to kind of navigate. Hotform still looking for that one force of nature.
And Ostkaka just looking for a card that does something besides stall and clear.
Yeah. This is his last freeze, though. So by playing things like Ancient of War, which could stick, I mean, each Savage Roar is 4 damage with 1 minion on the board. It's still a pretty decent amount, plus a swipe.
That card's actually terrible.
Yeah, Emperor Thorson reducing this hand.
Wow, that card is the worst one in the deck.
Is pretty yikes.
It's definitely not a situation where you're glad to see either of those cards, because Emperor Thorson, while obviously very powerful in its own right,
Yeah, he's much more powerful like 3 turns ago before you start playing the board clears.
obviously becomes incrementally more powerful based on the number of cards in your hand. And Ostkaka, as you point out, he hasn't found that Arcane Intellect, he hasn't found any Acolyte of Pain, those draw engines that allow him to get to having that massive hand size that's really rewarded by Emperor Thorson.
Yeah, the loot hoarders can sometimes be okay, especially in the early game. But when you're floating like 9 mana and you can't play anything and you get a loot hoarder, it's basically like increasing the chance that you draw something good next turn. And the funny thing is that didn't even happen. He drew like, out of the very few cards that still don't do very much, he drew 2 of those.
Right, we see Hotform here actually going to, I think he's going to try to pop pop the block.
At this threshold, it doesn't really matter if he uses Savage Roar or swipes to pop it. Although, the reason being because he's going to put him at low enough health that he can just hero power him down anyways. And if he draws Force of Nature, for example, then Force of Nature will just be 2 damage.
See, double swipe.
So he sees for an opportunity to pop, and he goes for it.
Yeah, the funny thing is when you use Swipe there like that, it makes it so Ice Barrier will counter your attack next turn.
Yeah,
and there's 2 of them.
There's one thing to consider. Looking at what Hotform just did, for the reasons you brought up, I'm not necessarily super sure I would agree with that, because Druid's ability to deal direct damage based on spells is actually just limited to Swipe.
And Keeper.
And
Keeper the Grove.
Right, okay, so he has only used 1 Keeper. So maybe it's okay, but only having Big Game Hunter in your hand, he's pretty much living on the top of his deck now.
Yeah. I think here Ostkaka, I mean, if he doesn't draw well next turn, he loses. There's just no doubt about that. It's unlikely, because, I mean, you know what's in basically every Druid deck, right? So you know the 2 swipes are gone, and you know that the Keeper's gone. I really would not be surprised to see the Emperor and Ice Lance on the 5/4 here.
Might be something we see in the next turn or 2, especially if he doesn't draw anything better.
Well, he's not going to take the risk of direct damage. Hotform knows that he eventually has to deal with it. Second BGH comes in hand, basically played in Jungle Panther mode, and he will continue to try and pressure his opponent out.
Yeah.
Ostkaka needs to draw into first, like, maybe card draw, and then into something else. Otherwise, he's going to have to try to ride the Emperor train.
Oh, man.
Well, this does allow him to get rid of the 5/4 if he wants to. It doesn't feel good. This is small victories.
You're gonna need that for like Antonitis. Like you're gonna need to use a second Ice Lance to help you secure a board that can win.
Oh wow, this is the smallest Emperor Thorsan in the history of Emperor Thorsan.
I think people watching might be like, oh yeah, I'm never playing Freeze Mage ever on ladder. Are you kidding me? but the truth is, Ostkaka is drawing like amazingly bad. Like truly,
Yeah, this is one of the,
you
it's
could
one of the
not
most
draw
awkward
worse than
draws.
some of these last few.
I mean, we saw Taj earlier chain together, what was it, like 28 damage with all the spells. At the end of the day, Freeze Mage is a combo deck.
Yes.
It obviously doesn't work the same as Grim Patron did prior to the Warsong Commander change, but it is a combo deck, and if you don't get those combo pieces in the right order, that's kind of what can happen. There's a real inconsistency to it, which is why, you know, decks like Druid or Face Hunter are usually more reliable, you know, say like ladder decks, because they have that high degree of consistency. Yep. Freeze Mage, very powerful in its own right, but yeah, if it doesn't get the tools it needs at the right time, especially against a class like Druid, things absolutely get bad for them.
Well, here it looks like you only have one play. You have to trade off the Tharson, you have to play the Doomster, you have to Ice Lance the 5/4. You're taking 5 damage, you're not quite dead yet, and you're crossing your fingers for your next draw.
Yeah, again, he would have to wish for draw into something good like Healbot. The problem with drawing Alexstrasza is that it would just get shut down by Game Hunter number 2.
Yeah, and Hotform couldn't play that if he wanted to here, so it would absolutely be that case. I think, though, oh no, he would be at 1.
We've talked a lot about
you're
what,
right, he wouldn't need like Healbot or something.
We talked a lot about what Ostkaka is doing here, but I think it's worth pointing out that Hotform has so many tech cards in this Druid deck. Seen 2 big game hunters now, a Harrison. This feels to me like a very clear read that he was expecting a lot of Secret Paladin.
I asked him exactly that question, actually.
Right.
And he said kind of something that came in my mind a bit earlier in one of the other matches, because we saw the double big game hunter, I think, from one of the Chinese players.
Right.
And the idea is that with the metagame being so aggressive, and sometimes when it is control, it's polarized in a very heavy control deck. In the control case, the big game hunter kills the big stuff. But often in the early game case, you have to use your shades.
Oh, man.
You have to use your shades very aggressively.
Right.
So it's the same as a big game hunter in so many instances.
That's fair, and that sounds like the exact sort of answer Hotform would give. Very high IQ player, much like Ostkaka. Ostkaka's going to now go down 0-1. Hotform taking just a reasonable lead in the series, nothing too crazy. Ostkaka obviously more than capable of digging himself out of the situation.
I feel like if Ostkaka just drew a decent card when he needed one, and there was like probably 3 turns of opportunity for that to happen. He just kept getting blank after blank after blank.
Yeah, there was definitely moments where Ostkaka potentially could have swung. His opponent used Keeper, for example, and he didn't have a way to clear the board, so if he drew Doomsayer anytime after he used those freezes, the board would have been cleared and potentially could have stopped some of the aggression. And then we saw that he drew Antonius at the very end, and if he just had some more health there,
right.
In fact, it potentially could have just ran away with the game because he has a lot of spells remaining. So you never know the outcomes. That's the power of being 1 card deeper in the deck. That's the power of having 1 more health. And that's why at this level, you want to make sure to maximize all these little opportunities of not taking unnecessary damage or trying to draw that extra card.
Or just getting a bit luckier.
Just getting a little bit luckier and not having that kind of hand for that matchup specifically.
Yeah. Well, maybe things balance out for him, and we'll have to see if maybe the reverse can happen to even the score.
All right. Well, while we do see that Ostkaka did suffer a little bit, we do see that Hotform is able to benefit from it, have the 1-0 victory. We're gonna have a moment with Hotform real quick about friendliness with the players. In the meantime, we're gonna get ready for game number 2.
The friendliness of the other players, I think, would be the most surprising part. The other players, although we're opponents, it feels really like comrades. When you're out there, you're just hanging out, waiting for things to happen, you're discussing strategies, and you're a little guarded about your own tech choices and those kinds of things, but when you're just there hanging out, it feels really like you're with a bunch of friends. So I think that was surprising to me. I thought some people would be more tense about it, but it's a really great feeling the way it worked out.
Game number 1 in the books. Hotform looking to punch his ticket to the round of 8. Being very friendly and sociable with players seems to be part of the fun aspect of Hearthstone, and I tend to agree.
Yeah, we've obviously seen now with the America's Championship, with this as well, we've had the chance to talk to a lot of these players, and everyone's just been super laid back, super friendly. A lot of the players have even told each other like kind of what they're running beforehand, which you would just think is crazy to do, but just very nice people overall.
That's right.
So.
Yeah, I know Ostkaka does feel pretty nervous though. He's saying like it's really hard for him to play 100% focused He can try to get the closest he can to, but you know, this is a lot. There's a lot on the line here. It's effectively doubling up your money every single time, with the exception of 10 to 25. But you really want to make sure to try and play your best because it's a lot of meaning to advance further into the tournament here.
That's right. Now we see a mage mirror. Of course, both these players are bringing very different mages. We had a bit of a teaser from Ostkaka's mage, though not so much. He really only drew one part of the deck. The freeze mage has that part, and then the other part draws those cards, so you don't have to panic every single turn. Now, against a more aggressive mage like the one Hotform is bringing, I actually feel like he wants kind of the hand that he had last turn, because he just wants to clear him up. The tempo mage is just notorious for running out of cards very early.
Yeah, tempo mage early's board is really difficult for the freeze mage to deal with because everything kind of warrants an answer. The mana worm, the sorcerer's apprentice, the flame waker, all these things you kind of want to frostbolt and fireball, and it's very easy for it to snowball out of control. However, that said, tempo mage is also dependent on that start. So sometimes if it doesn't get that early curve, then it gives freeze mage time to stall. But again, it's also really tricky because as the game continues to progress and you get lower and lower, freeze mage has so many, or sorry, tempo mage has so many ways to do that additional damage past ice barrier. So it's the same situation as hunter, where it's like, I have an ice barrier up, I have 3 HP, and I'm probably just gonna die.
Yeah, we saw how last game the ice barrier extended the game by 1 extra turn when the mage was at 1 HP. That would not be the case against another mage.
The hero power plus flame waker plus arcane missiles, you know, frostbolt, fireball, or even Antonitis, whatever it generates.
Now here, if you saw any other creature, you would consider either Doomsayer or Frostbolt, but you have to keep in mind that Hotform is running 2 mirror entities, and if you can kill the Mad Scientist, and it's not even posing much of a threat if he's only doing 2 damage, if you can kill the Mad Scientist, you know that you guarantee a mirror entity, and if you play Doomsayer into mirror entity, it will trigger on the start of Hotform's turn, because he would also get a copy, and there's absolutely nothing he can do against that. So here, I really like developing an ice block. Next turn, you can ping the Scientist and play your Doomsayer against whatever he can muster up on the board.
Right. I think 2 other important cards this matchup, at least to me, are Water Elemental and Nexus Champ Sarad. We talked a little bit at the start of this about how the Tempo Mage can really quickly run out of cards. Nexus Champ Sarad can help them a lot in that respect by just generating resources based on hero powering. And I think Water Elemental is kind of a little bit under the radar, but I think it's an important card because of that 6 toughness. 6 toughness kind of, as far as what a freeze mage can do to clear the board, obviously Flame Strike and Blizzard are great at dealing with low HP minions. Blizzard, sure, great at stalling things out as well. But in terms of dealing with 6 health, because you're not running stuff like Polymorph or anything like that, or even Polymorph Boar is kind of a good way of getting things to that lower health threshold. Doomsayer and Frostnova kind of becomes the combo that deals with cards like that. And 3 damage might not seem like much, but over time, if it's not dealt with, obviously the freezing doesn't matter much against the mage, but it's kind of interesting. And yeah, we're going to see exactly what you talked about, Griff. The end is coming twice.
Absolutely brutal.
Everyone's on the same page here. The end, in fact, did come.
Yep.
I don't know, Hotform draws the Fireball. The Fireball is quite important, but I feel like Hotform may have committed a bit much there. It feels like that point where you run out of cards and you're desperate to push for more damage as the Tempo Mage has come already on turn 4.
Yeah, well, this is one of those things where Ostkaka is drawing cards. He is getting the board clears very reasonably. So yeah, I think as you point out, ooh, so if he plays Nexus Champ Sarad here, you can see. Okay.
It can be killed, but it has to be killed. But, because he didn't actually attack the Acolyte, Ostkaka can deal with it with just a Frostbolt. He also has the option of Frostnova Ice Lance if he wants to really stall out the game, but I think that's maybe a little bit excessive. Maybe even the Fireball is just the cleanest way to do it here.
I mean, he just knows that he wants to remove both minions no matter what, and he's just getting damage in. So Champion Sarad, you know, most likely the spell that he gets probably won't be the one that helps him win the game unless it's Flare. And even if he did get that, it's a very unlikely scenario that it would actually.
You've actually just ensured that it's going to happen.
Well, he's not going to have a chance because Sarad's going to die.
Yes, Sarad has almost no chance of surviving this turn. I don't think Ostkaka is really that merciful right now. Also, it's kind of funny to note how you mentioned that the card probably won't have an impact in the game. The last time Next Champion Sarad ended up hitting the board and triggering the Inspire effect, it provided Hotform a Tree of Life.
Oh,
he was trying
you're right.
to zerg down his opponent.
That's so funny. Oh, wait. He is leaving it up.
Is Ostkaka not merciful?
Wow. So, I mean, the thing is, it's not only the spell, it's the fact that it's 7 power on the board. That's what was really the big concern from the beginning. Flare. Is it a flare? That would just be drop dead hilarious.
No, Sharp Sword Oil, though, is a lot of damage.
I mean, well, he doesn't have a weapon primarily, but it does +3 attack.
You can
Right.
+3 it.
It is a huge setup, though. It's like you have to like pull.
I just feel like you have to kill the 2/2 with the 4/4. So if you play Tinker Sharp's Throw Oil, you can kind of screw yourself by getting Flame Strike down next turn.
Yeah, which
he has, which would be the option actually.
Right. But this is like something that Ostkaka has driven himself into a corner in a way. Sure, Ice Barrier isn't up, but at this threshold, like Hotform can just use Fireball with Flame Waker and Mirror Images, and then that will just burn his opponent down to the Ice Block pop.
Yeah, Ostkaka right now, the one ingredient he's missing in this game is the life gain potential. Now, I don't even know if we've seen an anti-heal bot in his deck, but it has to be in there. I think before Blackrock Mountain, the heal bot often was kind of something you wouldn't really consider too frequently, but more recently it's just been an auto-include.
So this is an interesting situation here.
Yes, so
That may be underselling it as well.
I think he's considering fireballing with the Flame Waker. You put him at 1. You don't pop the Ice Block, but next turn he can't Alex Straza guarantee. If he fireballs and then Arcane Missiles, he can pop it right now, but then he has less spells with the Flame Waker.
Right, but as Crip pointed out,
that's the only way that you pop it right now,
yeah.
though. And you force Ostkaka to play the other Ice Block, which is ridiculously bad.
Yeah, heal bot as well, because Alex Straza is not in the equation, so it makes sense.
It's also, even without the Fireball and the Arcane Missiles now, you do have the Flame Waker, you have Mirror Image, so you can get direct damage.
Yep.
Especially if another minion doesn't come out.
Can get a heal bot. He gets Alex Straza.
That is going
a
to be a
huge piece there.
That's gonna, I think that pretty much salvages the game right there for Ostkaka.
It provides another like hurdle for Hotform to get over at least.
Right. Hotform's so low on resources. You've already used 1 Fireball.
The problem with him is that he has no more Ice Blocks.
Yeah, and Alistraza is the full turn, so Hotform can basically assess the situation as, you know, if he Alistrazes, yeah, he goes to 15, but I can try to threaten the board to beat that.
Right.
So, like, even this turn, he might consider playing the Mirror Image just to protect his board from the 2/2.
Sure. Would you go for Flame Waker too, just because it allows you to potentially pop, or do you feel like that's too important to potentially trigger if your opponent clears the board?
I don't really like the attack. I guess it doesn't matter too much.
Like this, putting down Sorcerer's Apprentice is a read, basically, that, you know, if Alex Straza comes down, you have something on the board already. You can go right back to pressing damage.
If he fully anticipated Alex Straza, then Ostkaka, or so then Hotform may have also considered playing Flame Waker.
Yeah.
Because then that's just the most powerful possible. So Drake off the top is pretty good, though.
That's a really good card.
Flame Cannon. Wow, that's
time for
so
some
much.
Spells.
Fireworks.
Fire Lord.
Yeah, but he's going to be dumping his hand here.
But there is no board clear, so Alistraza will not be able to get that hit in, I believe.
Right. Well, he can
double Frostbolt.
He can double Frostbolt
if he wants.
I mean, those things are really annoying.
Ooh, that attack actually gives Ostkaka 5 health. He definitely needs every single point of health he can get from this point.
Also, he has 1 Flame Strike, so Flame Strike number 2 is not really in the deck.
I really feel like Frostnova and maybe a Frostbolt and an Ice Lance is the play, because if you double Frostbolt, you can't activate Ice Lance.
Gotcha.
Is there any world where with this many cards in hand, you guys would consider playing down Emperor Thor's hand after doing something like Frostnova and then maybe an Ice Lance?
Yeah, I think Emperor Thorson with this hand might be his ticket back in the game, because he might be able to use... Well, it's actually hard because...
You want the 8 damage.
The 8 damage would be so big.
Much. Yeah.
But I do think Emperor might be his best chance, because it's also 5 damage, if you think about it.
What to do?
But then, what if his opponent just plays any spell? You might just lose it. I think you had to go for risk.
We've seen this all throughout the tournament. Players are obviously playing to win.
Yeah.
Let's see here.
Okay, so he kills this off in the chance that he doesn't want it to spray damage and kill everything. And that's the right move, considering that there is Sharp Sword Oil, and he knows that there is a spell from the Sarad. So
And
there's a
suddenly
high
it's looking
likelihood.
very well for Ostkaka.
Yeah, that Alex Straza surviving with 1 HP is so big.
Yeah. Hotform's Flame Waker got a little overzealous in doing the damage to Ostkaka directly. Probably should have been concentrated more on the giant dragon.
If he can get another freeze here, it's basically game over, I believe.
Right. Any Blizzard, any Frost Nova.
That's
does
also
a
pretty
good job there.
It does. It stalls for long enough. And trying to evaluate what can be done here. How much does he have in his hand? He's got the Fireball plus 2 Frostbolts and Iceland, so that's...
So one Frostbolt would have to kill the 0-2, so he's got 13 on board, plus the 7
16?
and the 6.
So 13?
13. He has 26 damage
26 damage.
to face.
And he can weave in pings too. He can also stall, so I like the idea of him just continuing to take his time here. Doesn't necessarily need to just OTK his opponent.
For Hotform, he's out of resources. Ostkaka's comfortably back up to 25 health, despite being at 1 for 2 straight turns, so...
Yeah, he's going to win the long run. Mage doesn't really have many cards.
That's such
Mere
a bad draw.
Entity is not going to do anything.
That is literally the one card that he would have drawn this turn through Mad Scientist, regardless of any situation.
That's
He's going to
correct.
play it to combo the Tinker Sharp Sword Oil.
Well, I guess you just make do with the cards that you have, but once they get
Ostkaka's
hot
at
form,
25 is basically like out of reach at this point.
now Ostkaka has to just draw Antonidas as the checkmate, and there it is. Hotform realizing that's probably not going to be his game. He's already stretching and relaxing.
Yeah, Antonidas is perfect here. You can play Antonidas and Frostbolt Ice Lance your opponent's Antonidas to just get 2 more fireballs.
Sure, or
And you can even fireball your opponent's face as well. I mean, you have massive discounts at this point.
yeah, it's almost inconsequential because Hotform is out of cards, so Hotform can't even. Or, I mean, how does he even answer this type of hand at all?
Deathwing, and then Ostkaka plays the Deathwing to get rid of all his cards, and then he draws a big game hunter to kill the Deathwing.
Yeah, he's got enough damage to kill him even beyond the Deathwing because he's got 4 fireballs. Gives him an extra card just out of safety measures. Flame Strike and Mana Worm.
Not quite. That is going to do it. A 5 from the Antonidas and the 12 from the 2 fireballs is enough. Ostkaka takes it.
It's true, so the Freeze Mage prevails for Ostkaka, beating out the Tempo Mage. And that means that we're one step closer to finding out how good is the Rogue as limiting factor, as well as that Patron Warrior.
One player will have to win with their Rogue. The really interesting point for me is going to be how this Patron Warrior actually matches up against this stuff. I think the old Patron Warrior that is no more, the charging patrons, I think used to do kind of a fair matchup against the Rogue. The Rogue often just put too much pressure if you got one of those very aggressive starts.
Sure.
And I feel like the alternate win condition of the patrons, where they just pop a bunch of patrons, that isn't actually a win condition against the Rogue, because that's what they'll save Blade Flurry to deal with.
Right.
So it feels like the Rogue would actually kind of dominate the Patron Warrior, while I'm not exactly sure if Ostkaka Rogue will dominate the Mage, because the Mage is a lot more aggressive.
Yeah, that's a really hard question to answer, considering that the deck's very new and the matchups aren't exactly fleshed out yet. Traditionally, against mid-range decks, Rogue does have this weird, like, maybe it's slightly unfavored, maybe it's slightly favored, depending on how your deck is, depends on which player you're asking. So I would definitely just call it even for now, because I don't really see any weapon hate on either side to really help bolster them. Like, sometimes Rogues in desperate situations run Harrison Jones, like if they have to beat Control Warrior, or even vice versa.
Patron Warrior runs Harrison just to beat other Patron Warriors.
Those kinds of things, if you include them in a deck, really help those matchups, but I don't really think that's the case.
I do like Water Elemental in Hotform's Tempo Mage, because that does a really good job of contesting weapon classes, so that might be something that kind of factors in. And I wanted to point out really quickly, you called it early on in that last matchup where it was the Doomsayer into the Mirror Entity. Mirror Entity is one of those cards that traditionally gives other classes fits, because it's a big tempo move. You're usually not sure what you want to play into it, but that ended up kind of just giving Ostkaka a super strong start there, and
It's a free, uninterruptible board
Right.
player, right?
Yeah, so it's very solid. But I don't know, as far as rogues go, I haven't seen a rogue mirror since Miracle Rogue.
Okay.
Well, we'll walk you through it when the time comes, if the time comes for it. But for now, we're going to take a quick break, get ready for game number 3. And when we return, we're going to see who's going to get the series edge between Hotform and Ostkaka.
So my family, they were a little bit questionable at first. Obviously esports is new to them, but after some explaining and, like people flying me out to different parts of the world, now I'm qualified for the World Championship, so that's a big deal. I mean, my friends are pretty interested, of course. I mean, they really, really think that it's cool that I'm traveling and doing all this cool stuff.
All right, Ostkaka slowly getting support of all of his friends and family. And hope you fans as well are supporting him. Hashtag EU win if you believe Ostkaka's going to win or you want him to win. Or you can hashtag NA win for all those Hotform fans. 1 game apiece with Mage Rogue versus Rogue Warrior. I'm not really sure what's the best. I do feel like that Patron Warrior is still unexplored or uncharted territory.
Well, that's the flip side of the coin. In Conquest, often it's not what's the best. The best deck still only gets 1 win. It's often what the worst deck or what the least fitting deck in the lineup is. And I think in this case, it really is the Patron Warrior. I didn't quite think about the freezing factor, but if you consider the freezing potential of the Mage, it seems like the Mage probably has a pretty good matchup against the Patron Warrior, as also I think the Rogue does as well. So it feels like the Patron kind of missed the opportunity to grab the win against the Druid, as it has 3 times in the tournament so far.
Water Elemental is just a thorn in the side of weapon classes, not even just for the freezing effect, but that 6 toughness is just really difficult to remove. It's actually, I think, probably one of the best cards in the Mage suite, because obviously it's a basic card, but for both the Rogue and the Patron to deal with, I mean, you may see a Rogue forced to use some like Sap on it, which always feels bad to use on a Water Elemental. So very curious to see how this goes, especially since Hotform did queue into this Tempo Mage that he brought with him.
Well, the players have not mulliganed anything yet, but it seems that Ostkaka is more likely to have a better hand here.
Yeah, he has the coin, which is really big. He has prep, which has also been proven to be a very valuable asset as well. Not to mention he has minions. Minions with preparation is what you want to combine it with. Even though ultimately prep gets spells, it's any sap or eviscerate that he gets makes it much more powerful.
All right, well, even though Ostkaka has all these answers, none of them are really... actually, he could have Deadly Poison to kill that.
Yeah, but now with
Mirror Weapon and then prep the Deadly Poison, which seems unbelievably wasteful, and you should never see that happen. But
Oh, we might even see an early Blade Flurry come out. So it's interesting to note, you pointed out, Rogue has a coin here. Very important to Rogues because it enables their combos, both spells and minions. SI7 Agent is usually so good at taking control of the board early on. It comes out, it does 2 damage. Mana Worm is just one of those actual minions you don't tend to see against the Rogue that much. That actually does a good job of dealing with the SI7 Agent because it just can't be outright killed.
Yeah.
And with the walls up there, the O2 walls, can't even just finish it off with the dagger just yet.
often you never want to draw cards on turn 3. You want to draw cards in a stage where you just have nothing else to really do or you need a specific answer. But here, Ostkaka really was just planning the Deadly Poison Blade Flurry, and he could have done it last turn, but I think he was just looking for one extra card to make it work.
Well, he picked up a better answer now with Prep Fan and SI. If he couldn't check this Mana Worm for one more turn, I would say that this game would have turned out to be a disaster, because he would take too much damage. And the problem is that it eventually curves out that Hotform would land on Boom, and Boom is the rogue assassin. Like, that card is so hard for Rogue to deal with. Sap it.
Yeah, just keep sapping it. I've tried that before. It does not work out.
No.
Those Boom bots are still real annoying.
Sometimes it does, but it's like very rarely.
Yeah, it kind of leads into that situation that gets a Reddit post where they're the true form of Dr. Boom with 3 Boom bots on either side. That's usually a Rogue game.
Oh, speaking of things that could end up on Reddit.
This is awesome. Big
Van Cleef?
Yeah.
You like Big Van Cleef?
I love Big Van Cleef.
I wonder if there is also room for an Azure Drake, but I guess this makes more sense given that he can just go for a 10-10 Van Cleef and force his opponent to immediately respond to it. Van Cleef's just going to grab it a very quick win.
Golden Van Cleef is so pretty too. I love this card.
Brotherhood shall prevail.
And Ostkaka's going to
Double
call
digits.
Hotform a lapdog. And,
I don't believe Hotform has a single card that deals with this.
Not a polymorph or silence. That's the only way you can.
Oh, wow.
Oh, actually, he does have a. Is he running Spellslinger? Spellslinger with Earthshock?
That would be pretty insane. I mean, I
That
guess
would
you
be,
could
of
still
course it would.
you can still get the Nexus champion, I guess, off of it.
Yeah.
But either way, Hotform is dead next turn. This could have been the quickest game of Rogue we've seen all tournament long.
I mean, I'm sure players who played in the Vanilla Warcraft can agree with me. That Edwin Van Cleef back in the day was a pretty tough opponent, so.
Wow, this is insane.
I don't believe he has controls, though.
Yeah, he just oils.
Oh, he just oils. That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
That's it. Game
Plain
3
oil.
Wow.
in the books. Rogue continues its win rate, and you know what? It dodged the other Rogue, so like, what if Hotform's Rogue wins, and then all of a sudden Rogue has one of the strongest win percentages in the tournament?
Well, I
Turn
believe-
6 kill, pretty good.
I believe Rogue has won 3 games and lost 1 so far. Correct. Priest is still 100%.
2-0. Warrior is pretty high, except for life.
Warrior is pretty high, but it's really Patron Warrior that's undefeated at 3-0.
And then
but
Shaman.
now Ostkaka will have to see if he can keep that statistic high. He is challenged with his Patron Warrior once again. So far, the Patron Warrior has been undefeated, but so far the Patron Warrior has somehow miraculously only queued against Druids, which we've learned, at least from
It's
this
good.
tournament,
It's a
that
good matchup.
it seems to be a pretty good matchup for Patron Warrior. Yeah.
Right. Now, I think, I mean, obviously, as Brendan put it out, we haven't actually had a chance to really kind of see how this all plays out long term because it's still a fairly new change. I feel like the Patron Warrior can still do reasonably against,
of course.
against Tempo Mage and Rogue. That said, obviously, Rogue's ability to clear the board.
I think it's actually a very bad matchup against Rogue. From what I've seen the Patron Warrior play, the win condition is either you have a frauding that can't be dealt with, but Rogue is master of dealing with things. And
dealing with
and the
it.
secondary condition is you just spawn a whole bunch of Grim Patrons. And yeah, I mean, sometimes the Rogue doesn't draw Blade Flurry, but with all the card draw and all the mechanics that allow you to maybe get those cards, it seems like the Rogue is likely to have an answer.
Right, well, we're going to get to put your theory to the test here.
I do feel like there are some caveats to it. The first is that Warrior still has its weapons, which are very effective against Rogue. And the second is that it's still hot. It has also minions that Rogue can't deal with, like Dr. Boom. And we're talking about Dr. Boom on the other side of it when Hotform was playing it. But if Ostkaka curves decently, has weapons to remove, keeps his board safe, and he's still gaining armor through like Armor Smith, if he stalls long enough, he can set up a Gromosh kill because Rogue will naturally use its own health as a resource to gain board advantage, but that advantage means nothing if you die the next turn.
There's also another dynamic to this, actually, with how few Rogues actually exist on ladder and how underplayed the Grim Patron Warrior is. I think the experience Ostkaka might have for this match might be very minimal, or none.
It could be the opposite side, too, where Ostkaka has played so much Rogue that he's one of the few people who actually understands it. I mean, he has Rogue in the lineup. So if there's a player that does understand that side, maybe it is Ostkaka, because he's also has a teammate in Sixo who's played this deck a lot and who can help walk him through. Versus Tice, for example, I'm not sure how much Tice has probably practiced against Rogue with that Patron deck. It's a very tricky
Wow,
scenario.
the South Sea deckhand on turn 1. That is ambitious.
You're definitely right about that, but like Sixo has played this new Patron a lot, but he's played it on ladder.
That's true.
There are no Rogues
Well, he
on
played in a
ladder,
couple
right?
tournaments, but they got banned.
Okay.
Which is the ironic thing.
Yeah.
Now, you did mention South Sea Deckhand, Rob. Very interesting tech choice because it's enabler for the oil. And it also is usually your answer to Mirror Entity, and you can combo it with like SI7. But I like taking the immediate board dominance because you force Warrior into a position of like, well, he needs to fire War X this, and then everything else is safer and chaining it.
What do you think about this attack? It feels like, you know, you have to kill your opponent eventually. But Warriors are notorious for their battle rage, and if you have a slow start, often the Warrior will play reactively and armor up. And often you can actually deny a battle rage by just not dealing damage in the first 2 turns.
Well, what the South Sea deckhand on turn 1 telegraphed to me is that Hotform doesn't want to let a scenario like Ferdinand had talked about, where the Warrior just gets out of reach, has too much armor, come to manifest. So what you do is you play down a South Sea deckhand, you basically threaten to nullify the hero power by hitting every turn with it, use a dagger to start chipping away. So this is kind of, I enjoy the discussion about battle rage and warrior health, because it is one of those things where if you're only doing 1 damage, it doesn't feel like immediately impactful.
Yeah.
But I definitely understand Hotform's line of play here in making sure that he's doing as much damage every turn as possible to try to keep the warrior from gaining much armor.
I like just the re-weapon Deadly Poison here.
And kill off the Acolyte. Here's a couple of things that Hotform has to consider. The first is, like you said, does he have the ability to kill the warrior? Because I feel like another opportunity for warriors to fatigue rogue out of damage. Like if they can't do anything, they deal with other minions. The second is how is he utilizing his resources? Because now that Death Spike comes out on 4, Vile Teacher's going to get challenged. And if he passes on Vile Teacher, he gives an opportunity for Ostkaka to develop minions.
It's an interesting point you brought up, the warrior just fatiguing the rogue out of the game. Because when Control Warrior and basically when Oil Rogue was being played a lot more, and there was Control Warrior all over the ladder, one of the reactions of Oil Rogue was to just put in 1 copy of Assassin's Blade, possibly a second, because you get so much extra damage, and that was how you kind of bridged the gap with all the extra armor. Obviously, Assassin's Blade is not in Hotform's deck, so that could be something that maybe he's just not equipped to deal with a ton of armor generation.
It's possible, but I feel like the Patient Warrior actually has quite a bridge of removal and armor compared to a regular Control Warrior. You're not running shield mains, you're rarely running shield blocks, you're rarely running shield slams. You have less removal, less armor generation. You mostly have like more aggressive mid-sized creatures, which is kind of the what the rogue likes to see on the board, because it sets up a more feels-good Blade Flurry.
Feels good Blade Flurry.
Yeah.
When are we going to get that Twitch emote? Feels good Blade Flurry.
I mean, it might happen. Deadly Poison, but he realizes that if he goes for a big amount of Violet Teacher tokens, he's going to get destroyed by the Whirlwind effect.
Yeah, there's not much choice here. The truth is that you had some kind of fancy Blade Flurry plays there, but there's just you can't do that. Yeah. I think the only chance the warrior really has is to push for enough of these mid-sized creatures to trigger a Blade Flurry, then get everyone in there.
Right.
Do you think there's room for Ostkaka to play Lotheb, or do you think he should save it for when he wants the opportunity to close the game? Because Lotheb against the Rogue, especially with this kind of hand, is really powerful.
I think what I would personally want to see here is a turn where somehow Ostkaka can use enough resources and maybe 5 mana to develop a reasonably intimidating board, and then try to drop the Lotheb to accompany it. Because basically use it as a closeout. He's going to go ahead and start making patrons here. We are...
I do actually, now that I think about it, I think if you drop Lotheb with a Frothing Berserker, that's also really good.
Yeah.
Rogue can't answer it as easily, and then maybe you could benefit off of what the Frothing Berserker likely to survive.
Hotform has to measure or weigh the benefits of this Blade Flurry, because the reality is he's Blade Flurrying 2 cards.
He's Blade Flurrying 1 card because he just kills the other one with his weapon.
And that's why he doesn't want to waste it.
Yeah.
He ends up very legitimate.
No, it's very much... I mean, you talked about the ability for a Rogue to clear the board, and that's very important to this matchup, but he has to use it at the right time. He can't just overcommit resources, and maybe Ostkaka will take this as a tell that he didn't have a Blade Flurry.
Yeah, absolutely, and I like being able to be aggressive here. And I'm almost, like, if he plays a Lotheb and the Frothing Berserker, he also has Whirlwind and Inner Rage, and that's going to be a lot of damage, at least like 3 to 4 plus. And that still has to mean that his Frothing Berserker #1 is dealt with, too.
Wow, another oil.
Yeah, this is a problem.
Is it time? Is it really a problem? How big can we get this weapon here?
So you would get it to 7 attack. That'd be 14 plus to eviscerate. That's only 21.
Not quite.
And that's assuming Warrior's not going to armor up. You would need to have sprint or something, otherwise Hotform's Rogues can get shut down very quickly.
I think the... Oh, can you even do that? No.
The difference maker would have been having a minion on board. If he had South Sea now...
South Sea.
But that's one of the situations...
now...
It's one of those situations where, at the time, on turn 1, you're like, all right, what's important to me in this matchup? Because Southsea Deckhand is a super important resource when it's in your deck, right? It's kind of the...
Southsea would push for 8 more damage.
It's that orc
that would
from,
be the gap.
It's that orc from Lord of the Rings that has a torch and it's like diving towards the wall and it's carrying all that poison. So very important to you, very impactful, but I fully understand what he chose to do early on.
Right, but because of that, we're not saying it's right or wrong. We're just saying that this choice has led to this juncture, which Ostkaka is going to take a very dominant position. Because, well, let's see. If he plays Lotheb and Frothing Berserker,
He can still Blade Flurry.
He still can Blade Flurry, but I still think that's the strongest play here.
Yep. That's a very, very reasonable play here.
He Blade Flurries, but he doesn't even kill Lotheb. And he's going to also take damage if he swings again. This could be the way Ostkaka goes to the round of 8. And Sprint got drawn. It's too late. Hotform is like, God, just one turn earlier.
Yeah, one turn earlier, he could have drawn into a lot more answers, would have had a lot more control over the game with more possibilities. But it feels like, it really feels like we witnessed this in the Freeze Mage game that Ostkaka had, where you drew in some kind of a combo deck. You just drew all of one part of the combo.
Yeah, pretty much. And now Hotform is waiting to see if it's his last turn. Ostkaka can't enter rage for that, unless he had Commanding Shout. That's the way he could have done it. Rampage. I love it.
I mean, Ostkaka has kind of been on a rampage, so thematically it would work, but he does at least have the War Axe in hand.
So you threaten damage the next turn. And it's really hard to deal with, honestly.
And he did use Blade Flurry, so you're more likely to use Inner Rage and flood the board. And Hotform would be at 2 HP.
Hotform has to develop a weapon to get another Blade Flurry and heal
or taunt
on the same turn.
Yeah, it's just too much.
Well, with prep, there certainly are ways, but it's going to be extremely tricky, and he needs a card to help him right now.
Shredder probably not the answer, so it's time to prep Sprint. See what you find.
He doesn't even have a weapon equipped, so oil is just too expensive.
He hasn't played the other prep, though, so...
You need a taunt, you need a heal, you need a Deathwing.
Nope, everything here basically helps create more patrons or doesn't do anything. And Hotform looks like he is out of answers. He's going to try to look at his hand, though, to see if there's any possibility.
Yeah, it looks like this is the last turn that Hotform is getting in this match.
We'll see what he elects to do, but yeah, from what we can see anyway, there is currently no way out of this situation.
In fact, everything he does helps the warrior. He helps create more patrons. He helps give him armor. He puts himself further behind in this game. I think he's coming to the conclusion. That's it. Ostkaka goes to the round of 8 and wins Group C in first place.
And of course, today we are not having any elimination matches or anything like that. These are the winner matches. So Hotform's record so far here is 1-1, and he will be playing his decider match tomorrow to see whether or not he ends up joining Ostkaka in BlizzCon after all.
Right. Big narrative, though. 2 players bring Patron. 2 players in the top 8 with Patron. So.
You know, as well as Priest and Rogue. It's not even just Patron, because again, in Conquest, it's not about individual deck performances. It's about lineup. And when you examine lineup, it's the fact that they're not only feeling confident about Patron, but they're feeling confident about Freeze Mage. And then they round it out with Rogue or Priest. That's very fascinating, in my opinion.
No, it's a kind of a story. I don't want to say a story of underdogs, but it's a story of a wide open meta. Like all these different decks being brought. I'm very much looking forward next to the Shaman on Shaman action. We have a guy who promised to do nice things with Shaman and the Shaman God. Very exciting. Very
Sounds
exciting
hot.
tournament.
Sounds hot.
The really interesting thing about that, we talked about like how the meta has such diversity. At the same time, it doesn't even require it. I mean, people are just playing a lot of aggressive decks, which I kind of think they are. It makes the tournament meta one where you can polarize it so much to deliberately counter it.